Hi, I'm Robert, and welcome back to another edition of the High Desert Ranch channel. It is Truck Talk, and it's been a while since I've done an official Truck Talk episode, and one of the subscribers, she asked about a Truck Talk video, and that she really enjoys them, and so anyways, I thought, yeah, it'd be good. Sometimes it can be a little bit more heavy, and I don't like to focus on the heaviness aspect sometimes, but it's important to talk about and to at least contemplate and reflect, but always remain positive. And because in order to see the beginning from the end, you have to know what's coming at you now or in the very near future. And so the title of this Truck Talk that I'm doing is called A Better Class of Losers. And then I'd even have in parentheses, parenthetical, bread and circus. And so kind of a little teaser, what does that mean, a better class of losers? And I would say, which group or crowd are you part of? Are you the losers or the bread and circus crowd? Now, both don't sound very desirable, but maybe by the end of this short Truck Talk video, you'll see that there's one clear beneficial group that you'd rather be a part of. So let me take you to a recent event that just happened. I was delivering some beef to an individual, and I was there with my boy and my girl. And once we were finished, the person asked, "So, whose side are you rooting for?" And I thought, side? The devil or the Lord's? Like what? He's like, well, which team are you rooting for? And again, I'm just like, and at that point he was like, the Super Bowl. I said, oh, I don't know. Well, if my blank response or stares were any indication, I don't know. I don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak. And I guess it was between the gold diggers and the chefs. I don't know. Anyways, so excuse me, part of that, sorry, it's cold. It's a balmy 15 degrees. And so got a little bit of a cough from finishing up chores and whatnot. But again, welcome. If you're new to the channel and you're new to this is something I just like to keep it simple. And this is me finishing up chores, just you and I talking, right? Like two old friends, so to speak. But so, and if you're joining me, returning, welcome. It might have been, if you're new, you probably haven't experienced one of these Truck Talks. So go back and check some of the Truck Talks. Some of them are dated, others have aged well, like a fine wine, but in a not so good way. So anyways, you have what I see going on, this culture of what I like to call the bread and circus, where you have the games, the sports, the circus, so to speak. And within this circus, there's a drama or a soap opera or romance playing out. And there's some football player, I have no idea, and some pop culture singer. I won't name their names. I can't even think of the football player. But anyways, there's this drama and everything, and it's just this big hubbub and this and that. And I just think, the older I get, things are so almost staged. When you step back and kind of look at everything, again, the Truman Show or the bread and circus, whatever you want to call it, and then running laterally next to this circus is the bread, and the bread being the politicians, the corrupt, criminal political class, supplying not only the circus but also the bread to the masses. And you have that going on. And if you've not read, here's the Ranch Book Club. Maybe I'll start one of those. It is The Fall of the Roman Empire. It's a great book if you're not big on reading or don't have time, but you might have a lot of time either driving or doing chores or a tractor or some sort of game. Get it on audio. It's a great book. It's a great read. Very fascinating. That covers the entire history. One of the best written books on the Roman Empire. But as I didn't watch any of this sporting event, but it made me think about towards the end of the fall of the Roman Empire, there was the outer expanses of the empire that were collapsing for a lot of reasons. And then you had the center of the empire, which is Rome. It was very insulated from all this that was happening, and it just didn't happen overnight. It happened over decades and even almost an entire century or half century. It was a marked decline, and it just got worse and worse and worse and faster and faster and faster. But towards the end, there was the peak of military service. It was a thing to be. It was an honor, but towards the end, there was not an honor. No one wanted to sign up. No one wanted to volunteer for military service or even get paid to do military service. So there was a mass conscription of people who were from the far reaches of the empire that really didn't have allegiance or loyalty at that point. And we don't see that happening today. A decline in military service and the enticement or the programs to entice those that are, of quote, the far reaches of the empire, known as the U.S., being drafted or conscripted into military service. And I have to be careful, so read between the lines. If you're in the know, you know what I'm talking about. So you have that. And then you also had just people, the corruption within, like I say, the politics, and then the constant just circus and bread of the crowds and the masses. Just how do we appease the masses while meanwhile the outer edges of the empire crumbling, and it's starting to come home to roost to the very center of the Roman Empire of Rome. And so you also had the men. It got to the point as far as fashion and appearance, it was hard to even tell the men from the women, and vice versa. Not that we have any of that going on today, but this is the next part I'm going to talk about, and this is the most important part. Is in 410 AD, the final, once Rome was finally overthrown, you had the Visigoths, the Vandals, and the Germanic tribes, the Germans, within, I believe it's 50 miles of the Roman city. And you think at that point, 50 miles, that's not very far away. I mean, even for a full day's march for an army, you're still looking at roughly, 10 days. If you do a hard march, you're there in 2 or 3. So it's not that far off. This huge invasion. I mean, a couple 100,000, about 100,000 men, heavily armed men, and they're on a mission. At this point, they've pillaged and burned and done all the awful things. And there's no alarm. The Colosseum, they said, let's continue on with the bread and circus. The Colosseum, 50,000 people can be seated. But even more so, and this doesn't get talked about, was the Circus Maximus. And that was just a stone's throw away from the Colosseum. That was bigger than the Colosseum with the gladiators. Everyone talks about the gladiators and this and that. But the Circus Maximus, where they had all the horse racing and the chariots, that held almost 200,000 people. It was huge. It was massive. I mean, we don't even have stadiums that hold 200,000 people. And so what's interesting is they just carried on like, come on, like you're not a sports fan, like don't worry about this army. Like, what I thought was so interesting is for so long there has been relative peace, especially within the capital regions of the empire, that even with this army that was just bloodthirsty, they were on the march. They didn't care. And even when they were 5 to 10 miles out, they were still gambling, betting, all sorts of debauchery, and just lasciviousness was happening with the people and the politicians and the culture, even with all this burning. So when they say Nero played the fiddle while Rome burned, well, there was all this awfulness happening and just debauchery while Rome was burning by the Visigoths, the Vandals, and the Germans. So I look at nowadays, the elites think, what do they think of us? It's the same thing. We're the working man and woman. They consider us the better class of losers. And they try and keep us appeased and distracted with the bread and circus, which, again, sports isn't bad per se, just like a horse isn't bad. But if it's a Trojan horse, then yes, it is a bad thing, right? It's what is waiting inside that distraction or that diversion or that circus. And nowadays, what would be considered the Visigoths, the Vandals, and the Germans as it relates to the American culture and our country as a whole? Is it the inflation? the devaluing of the dollar, which is the devaluing of the dollar through just ridiculous spending and out of control spending from both the liberals and the quote unquote conservatives. There's no one stopping anything. It's just on an out of control roller coaster since 2020. Is it the fentanyl pouring across our borders and even looping drugs in general? Is it the soft invasion planned by the UN from these countries where for the last few years there's been going with lockdowns? Excuse me, I had something in my throat, but 3 years of lockdowns where people have starved, tens of millions, and they've been impoverished. Or is it the propaganda from pop culture, the news, I'd even say weather, movies, and now even sports? So which is it? Or is it all of those things? And are we people that, are you an individual that you see this? You see the army, so to speak, off in the distance? Are you going to gather your family and make what preparations you can? Or are you going to say, come on, there's nothing to worry about. Come on and watch the bread and circus. Again, these things aren't necessarily bad, the diversions, because we all need a break from the daily grind. But at what point is it too late? And all the opulence and the bread and circus, all the empty promises and what we put our faith and trust in literally comes crumbling down in front of us. And in the end, it is met with blood and horror. So again, some food for thought, some things to think about. As I always say, you only get so many trips around the sun. So decide what it is you're going to do today and get after it. Even if that means you have to find yourself in a quiet place to contemplate what it is you need to do, or even remove yourself from the bread and circus and get yourself up to a vantage point. Again, it's kind of a metaphor, truck talk, to see what is coming. And sometimes it can be a good thing, or sometimes it can be a really bad thing. And it's seeing that bad thing that you can then make preparation and action to take yourself and your family, if you have one, to a better place. Away from all the craziness, and even just if they are distractions, not necessarily the blood and horror and the terror and the destruction that is soon to follow, but just removing yourself from all that so you can get a better perspective on life and just have that reset. So anyways, I hope this truck talk was useful. That's, again, some food for thought, and I appreciate you coming along on this cold, wintry, snowy night with me. And please check out the other videos on Truck Talk and also my other videos here on the ranch. They're broken up in a very convenient playlist. And until next time.